Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we have all been waiting for. It has finally happened. So much so that Josh and I are playing hooky at work to let you know about it. The Miami Dolphins have fired Mike McDaniel, and we are fired up about it, and we're about to talk about it. Breaking news! The Miami Dolphins have officially fired Mike McDaniel after a 7-10 season, which followed up a 8-9 season the year prior. And before that, 2 wild card appearances both ended in losses, Josh. I mean, we just had a show yesterday where we got all fired up about the fact that John Harbaugh was available and why the hell do we still have Mike McDaniel? And looks like we were just a day too early on that.
Yeah, it's just kind of the writing was on the wall. We had hoped. We talked about it on last night's show. We wanted to see some conviction from a front office that has historically, at least under the guidance of Stephen Ross, been questionable at times, less convicted than you would want at times when it comes to making decisions. Now, silver lining being something that we are complaining about in taking so long to make a decision on, for example, Chris Grier getting let go or Mike McDaniel being let go, is actually, ironically enough, something that our future head coach and staff is probably going to really enjoy, because that means that they have enough time seeing the landscape of Stephen Ross as the owner. They will have enough time to implement everything. But we are not talking about the future. We are talking about the present, and we're talking about something that we both really wanted to happen.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. This is another coach that we were very excited about, but not only because we got past the Brian Flores era, which we had soured on very quickly, but also because he came in with a different flavor. He wasn't a traditional head coach. He didn't speak like a head coach. He wasn't boring, and it was the exact opposite of Brian Flores, right? Yeah. Like everything that Flores did, Mike was the opposite of, including supporting our quarterback, who at the time we were very supportive of. But flash forward 4 years later, things have gone south quite quickly. His masterful schemes that he drew up in 2022 and 2023, with both saw playoff appearances, withered away in 2024, and he was never able to catch back up to opposing teams catching up to him. Mishandling of game clock situations, just in-game mishandling in general, like full stop. You can just terrible at it. 4 years of it, never improved. Blown timeouts because he couldn't get a play in on time. It's just, there was just so much to this. And I know we don't have an enormous amount of time here to talk about it because it's a breaking news segment and we don't want to bore you for too long. But man, like if you had to pinpoint like 2 or 3 things that really just kind of drove you craziest about him, man. Like,
Jesus.
I know it's on the fly, but like just give me one at least.
No, I have 17 of them off the top of my head. No, all bullshit aside, like the 3 ones, the 3 that really come to mind are scheme adjustments. And what do I mean by that? Being stubborn in not recognizing personnel fitting with scheme. You drew up your entire playbook. You drew up all your plays for Tua, for the fast Ferraris on the outside. And when Tua went down and when Waddle went down and when Hill was out, you put in other players and you still ran the same scheme for the players that didn't fit. And you seemingly refused to, for over a year and a half, to adjust in any way, shape, or form to fit the players' talents that are actually playing on your team. When it came to playing replacement players, which we did quite often. The next thing, third quarter adjustments out of halftime. We talked about it at nausea yesterday, and we've talked about it all year. We are one of 5 teams, historically bad, one of 5 teams in NFL history to have the deficit that we did in points allowed versus points scored in the third quarter, which is 132-27. We scored 27 points in the third quarter all year. We allowed 132 all year. You're not going to win many football games that way. And it's funny because it's very like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because when we got him to what you alluded to earlier, I enjoyed his player friendly. I want to be everyone's friend. I'm going to make this a but I was tired of it after year 2.
Yeah, me
too. There were, when we started getting stars and high profile level players, Mike McDaniel got walked all over. This entire organization got walked all over by those players, and I'm talking about Jalen Ramsey's and I'm blanking on Jonnu Smiths and insert other Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, everyone. They got the monies that they wanted, not that they deserved, and were basically able to do whatever they wanted. And there was no accountability. There was no, I'm the adult in the room. You're going to follow my lead, because there was no lead. And you look at his regular season record: 35-33. Playoffs 0-2, 2 wild card trips in his time here, no wins. I know you got some great stats about wins versus playoff teams and stuff like that, which I'll let you hit on. But yeah, those are the 3 things off the top of my head. I mean, I could keep going, but what about you?
Yeah, it's an enormous fall from grace, and I think I don't know what that conversation was like today, by the way, and we may have buried the lead there. He had his final conversation with Stephen Ross today. Mm-hmm. They met on Monday after the game. They had a brief conversation on Monday, and then they were like, okay, Ross said, we're going to touch base later on in the week. I think he wanted to get some of the GM interviews out of the way to see what GMs were thinking about the situation before he made his final call.
Yeah.
Round 1 of the GM situation is done. We have narrowed it down now to 4, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But then today was the final conversation. After having that conversation with the GMs throughout the week, or the GM candidates throughout the week, and then having that conversation with Mike today, it was decided to let him go. And why I say that's a fall from grace is because in 2023, this was the most exciting team in football, capped by a 70-20 win versus the Denver Broncos, which made Brandon Perna and the most famous Denver Broncos YouTuber in the history because of his epic rant about the Broncos losing 70-20 to the Miami Dolphins. By the way, I still watch him to this day now. That's how impactful that video was for him. So shout out to him. Yeah. So not only that, right? 496 points in 2023. That's 29 points a game, second in the NFL. To flash forward to this year, 347 points.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just 20 points a game, man. Not enough to win the NFL. It's 25th in the NFL. And then to put the cherry on top, all of our losses, for the most part, come to playoff teams. In fact, 67% of Mike McDaniel's losses, his 33 losses, 22 of them were to playoff teams. He only has 5 wins against playoff teams. So that means he was 30-11 versus non-playoff teams and 5-22 versus playoff teams. You are never going to win a Super Bowl if you are that inconsistent versus playoff caliber teams, which just goes to show that his scheme was really good at beating up on bad teams, but it didn't live up to the hype when it came against a team that was well coached.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even let's just focus on 2025. I mean, I know that is not, that's the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, right? 2025. Yeah. To your point, we scored just a hair over 20 points at 20.4 points per game, but we allowed 25 points per game. We allowed 424 points scored all year. And yes, people will say, well, but that's not the head coach. That's the defense. No. Try again. Nope. Because guess who hired him, and guess who has the final say, and guess who should theoretically put his imprint on being the head coach, not the offensive coordinator, not a defensive coordinator. You're the fucking head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And that is something that I want to make sure, on the flip side of celebrating his departure, I do want to make sure that we do appreciate the fact that in 2023, and I know you alluded to it a second ago, we had the single most exciting football team and offense in the NFL. And it changed how people, you can see multiple teams, playoff teams right now, actually, which is really depressing, running some of the motion offense that Mike McDaniel implemented when he came on board as the Miami Dolphins head coach. Do I think he deserves to get another head coaching job? Absolutely not. I don't think he's ready for it. I've said it all year. I've said it for the last 2 years. He is going to be a phenomenal offensive coordinator for his next team, because that's where I think he goes. I think he becomes, I don't know where you sit with this. I think he becomes an offensive coordinator for Green Bay, for Detroit, maybe even Buffalo, who the fuck knows? And seriously makes a serious impact. He is that kind of quality offensive coordinator. But when you're the head coach, and I said it last night, there's so much more that goes into it. You're not just designing plays and calling plays on Sunday or Mondays or Thursdays or Tuesdays. We have fucking football games every day now. You're tracking travel schedules, workout routines, implementing workout schedules, hiring staff, being the manager of the said staff and the football team and who was on IR and figuring out when people are coming back and working with the GM for draft and work. It's just so much more that goes into being a head coach.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel, I didn't think was ready, which is why I want so desperately for us to get John Harbaugh or Kevin Stefanski or a head coach that has been a head coach before, because what we have done for the last couple cycles of this football team is hired head coaches that are first time kind of buzzy young coordinators that have never done this before. There's so much that goes into it. So I want to make sure we give him flowers, the few that are due, right? He changed the NFL's offense in 2023. He's going to be a hell of an offensive coordinator somewhere. And I hope for him personally, he gets another chance to be a head coach. I don't think he will.
So let's wrap this up with what's next here. I mentioned before that we have narrowed down our GM search to 4 names. Unfortunately, 2 of the names we really liked cut at the first thing. Alec Hallaby from the Eagles and Rich McKay from the Rams both did not make it to round 2, which I'm surprised by. Chad Alexander from the Chargers, which has a very tight connection with John Harbaugh. Yep. He did make it to round 2. John Eric Sullivan from the Green Bay Packers, who I think is just an all-around great option. He pushes building from the draft and building from the inside out. Mm-hmm. He is focused on paying his own players first and outside players never or later. And then Josh Williams from the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, our executive team has a lot of faith in the 49ers program and how they've set things up. And they must think Josh, out of the 3 that they were interviewing, had the biggest impact over there. And then, of course, our interim GM, Champ Kelly, who, looking at his, he doesn't have a strong GM background. He has been in scouting for a while now, but he has been in the GM circuit since 2019. So I think, landing on Champ would be a little disappointing, but I don't know all that much about him. From a head coaching perspective, and then I'll throw it to you, Josh, obviously, like you mentioned, John Harbaugh and Kevin Stefanski are the 2 names that light up the most to me. It's a coach with experience who maybe just needed a new place to go. They are not on the same level. It's John Harbaugh. Stefanski's down here somewhere, but he did win 2 Coach of the Year awards. He got the freaking Cleveland Browns to the playoffs for the first time since the 90s. So I think he does deserve some flowers himself. And then, of course, there's Chris Shula out there if we want to try another first-time head coach, and the Shula connection is obvious. So anything you wanted to note about what's coming up next for pretty much it'll be done by this weekend, the GM search, and maybe even the coaching thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really that's kind of the big takeaway here is that Chad Alexander and John Eric Sullivan are reported either virtual or in office today, as of this morning, doing their second round of interviews. The expectation is that there will be a decision made by end of the week, and a head coach decision to be made there soon after. I know it's been widely reported that John Harbaugh is not taking any more interviews, or not taking any interviews for that matter, until next week. It seemed a little perfect for us, which makes me believe that there's a solid chance that he actually becomes our next head coach. Because if you look at what happened, if you look at the timeline of things, Chad Alexander got brought on and put into our GM search a day and a half before John Harbaugh was let go. He's now made it to the round 2. He's the very first one that we are interviewing today. John Harbaugh said, well, you know what? I'm not going to take any interviews until next week, knowing that Miami, so there's a lot of pieces that could fall into place here that have to fall in place. I will say if John Harbaugh doesn't come here, there are still plenty of other head coaches that I'm very excited about, because Green Bay might be letting go of Matt LaFleur. That would be another good option. Buffalo might be changing if they lose in the wild card. They might be getting rid of their whole coaching staff. So there are a couple good options should John Harbaugh not become the Miami Dolphins. But I have a feeling.
Listen, one last thing I want to say before we wrap this up is that if they do decide to hire Chad Alexander and he cannot sway John Harbaugh to come here, I really hope they like Chad Alexander for more than just his connection to John Harbaugh.
He's a hell of a GM candidate, really is. Like irregardless of his relationship with John.
Yeah,
Chad Alexander's one. He would be a phenomenal choice.
Perfect. All right, let's jump to the chat quick, and then we'll wrap it up here because, I have an actual work meeting.
Yeah, me too.
So, Happy New Year's, True Blazer. Mac McGeff, thanks for joining, buddy.
That's my brother. That's my brother. Right there.
Yeah, they're committed to the full change, which is great. And Blake, they fired him, buddy. They finally fired him.
They let him go.
Fantastic. Yeah. It's definitely a happy.
He can no longer hurt us anymore.
No longer. All right, that's it for this breaking news segment. Mike McDaniel's fired as the Miami Dolphins head coach. We are going to get a bunch more new information coming this weekend, so I am sure you will hear from us before the weekend is out. We're just going on last night, Josh, about how that was our last live show for 3 weeks. Nope, not so fast, my friend. Not so fast.
All right, everyone.
All right, everybody. Catch you later.